Lovely. Hello, here we are, Winning Minds with Wilkinson, and today we've got a CEO and founder of Recite Me, Ross Linnett. Hello, mate.
Thanks so much for having us, Dave.
No, you're welcome, mate. You're welcome, mate. We'll get over the pleasantries and we'll get into the meat in a second. But we've known each other for quite a few years, right?
Yeah,
And kind of mutually connected as well, and actually from a very similar
good
area.
friends. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure we'll get into all that in a second, but I think the first place when I thought about it, bringing you on, the first place I want to start was actually like your sport background, first of all, before we move into your business and stuff.
yeah,
Um, you were a sprinter, and
yeah.
I'd say like me, but you were a lot faster than me, mate.
Yeah,
But
I was fastest in the Northeast for quite a while, and I kind of worked my way up the ranks. And I was on Grandstand, if anybody's watching, if they can remember Grandstand back in the day. It was good. It
that's
was a good time in my life, actually. It taught me a lot about
yeah.
achieving. It
Yeah, that's definitely what I want to get into with you a little bit because I think the mentality that comes from that sport, especially sprint as well, because a very again very what we say I know about is it's really hard sport, like
yeah,
very tough physically on the body, mentally, and obviously then you're racing, aren't you?
yeah.
Um, there's a mentality to have to turn up to do that comes into business. But talk us a little bit about sprint, like what you did, what distance, times you ran. Just talk us a little bit about that first, and then we'll move into the preparationals.
Yeah, I mean, I was always very fast at school,
Mm.
and I was the fastest in my year, but I was that fast. I was fastest in the year above, but I was also very small. Well, not very small, but I was kind of one of the smaller ones in the year. Um, and then as I started growing, maybe it's like 12, 13, I started kind of like catching up to everybody. And the fact that I was already fast when I was small kind of just propelled. And
Mhm.
but my love was football at the time, and I think this is an important part of my mindset as well. There's when to spot the negatives. But football was my love, and I wanted to kind of be a professional footballer.
Mm.
I played for Sunderland Centre of Excellence, and I stopped enjoying it, but I was not willing at the time to admit it to myself because I'd been committed for that long.
Yeah.
And I remember it was Christmas Eve, and it was when all the Centre of Excellences used to play each other. And Sunderland's coach at the time, he'd come to watch, so he would pull anybody into the team from this point. And I remember there was parents screaming at the kids. I mean, my granddad used to come and watch me, so he wasn't. Half my team were crying, and I played a blinder this game, an absolute blinder. But I realized I played a blinder because all the coaches were kind of like packing up and looking at something else, and it just something clicked with the everybody's crying around us. They didn't seem to be enjoying themselves. I seemed to play better when it wasn't a thing, when I didn't have to impress anybody.
Yeah.
And there was just a cascade. And maybe it's with it being Christmas Eve and not being able to kind of move my hands because I was that cold. Um, I decided that was it. I says, I just don't like football in the same way, and I should really progress sprinting. So
Hmm.
if we're going to touch on anything on mindset, sometimes a positive mindset is knowing when to pivot or
Absolutely.
when to let go.
When to let go, which I think people struggle with, right? And it was interesting talking to a guest earlier as well about that, like when to know to like get out of one thing and into another when it's no longer serving you or right for you or feels right. And it's something people forget, right? We think everything's about positive, 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 but what you said, spot the negatives.
Yeah,
Touch a little bit on that.
you've got to be able to manage the negatives because you have the human brain. It's well studied, is built with more negative emotions. So you're designed to protect yourself by viewing and experiencing negatives,
Hmm.
and it's being able to sort through that of when this negative emotion is serving you and when this negative emotion wasn't. And this in this case, it was massively pivotal. You can look back on your life and you can probably find 10 incidents in your life where you just make a decision in the moment, like you uh, meeting your now wife, that completely changed your life forever. And sometimes they're positive motivators and sometimes they're negative motivators. And this one, it was a negative. It was like, I'm not enjoying this no more. So
Yeah.
I switched. And then I started sprinting.
Hmm.
Um, I got fast very, very quickly, very, very quickly. And then I did actually, one of my good friends, Jeff, while playing football at school, because I was still at school at this point, by the way, he ran into the side of my leg, so it damaged me tendons and ligaments and cartilage. So I kind of had to have a year and a bit out. So
right?
yeah, so it was a false start, right? So nothing. There's another mindset thing. Sometimes things don't always go to plan.
Yeah, sometimes you don't go to plan the way you want. Absolutely. And so obviously used to train at Gateshead, didn't you, for your sprint? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's right. Yeah.
100 and 200 meters,
100, 200. Yeah, got very fast. Like got the point where I was kind of the fastest. I had the Gateshead Harrier record. So at the point I was under 20, I was the fastest ever um person. And
hmm
then I had the 200-meter northeastern record, and that
hmm
record had stood for a long, long time. Um, and then I broke it, and then somebody broke it like a month later. So
like gives me record back.
yeah, yeah. I can't believe it's stood for this long, and then somebody breaks my record.
It's
But
like that Roger Bannister 4 minute mile thing, though, isn't it? After he broke the 4 minute mile,
yeah,
everybody after that was breaking it, right? Because there's no commit.
yeah. And it's one of the things to look at in life as well. You know, you don't own anything really. You're just a steward over it. So even your achievements of what you've done and what you set out to do, somebody's going to come along and probably beat it.
hmm
So you've just got to enjoy your time when you have achieved something, you know. But
Yeah.
speaking on like the motivators, you know, to pursue my athletics career, there had to be a lot of pivots and the ability to walk away from things, which I
Yeah.
think is often a massively under discussed area of life of,
hmm
you know, what are you going to achieve, but also what are you going to sacrifice? And at the time, you know, I was 17 probably, and
hmm
you know, I was drinking, I was having fun, um, and I had to make the decision to like pull away from the groups. It was going to be, am I serious about this, or am I going to continue partying like everybody else?
Yeah.
And I was that good. Even people that I was drinking with were like, "You are a fool if you continue to live this lifestyle." And something just clicked again, and I was like, "Right, that's it." And I probably like relatively teetotal for about 4 or 5 years,
Right.
apart from the odd blowout in me younger 20s. And it was possibly one of the best things I've ever did in my life.
Like, was it the best thing, like being teetotal, or that commitment to like just that strength of character to give something up?
To give us
That's
something,
that's quite powerful, isn't it?
to give something up, and that to be etched in my brain for the rest of my life. That
Yeah.
most achievement requires an element of sacrifice somewhere in your life. In training the brain early on to be like, look, I'm not going out partying.
Mhm.
I did now and then. I really missed it, but this is something that I'm willing to give up to achieve this. And I think it gave me a better life. And
Mhm.
as we'll talk more, I think it created the foundations of my life, which I've very much stood on in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because that's why I want to start with the sport bit, because I think there's so many pivotal lessons that would have come from that time period of being so committed at a high standard in sport to
Yeah,
what then has catapulted you to like start a company and grow a business, and we'll get to that. But
yeah.
so one of the things that I wrote down, you tell me, Ross, what the main characteristics you take from sport into business. I wrote down one which I know about you, which is competitive.
Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's a major one.
yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, and then add any other ones that you think are really important that you have.
I think you're born. You know, I said before, I think you know I'm personally mentored by a guy called Ty Lopez, who um and he talks a lot about how a lot of things are genetic. And
hmm
competitiveness was always a thing since I remember since I was a kid. But it's almost like the competitiveness was the seeds, and then the sport was the fertilizer, and it made it grow. And it
hmm
made me realize the beauty of, like, you know, everyone is in competition with each other to some extent. And you've probably got to embrace that in life, but then be a gentleman at the end of it. And one of the
hmm
things I always loved about track and field was, you know, you were enemies, particularly at the start line. There was a lot of psychology. You were looking at each other, you were trying to psych each other out. But soon as that race was finished, um, you were best friends. You were shaking each other's hands, and you were normally complimenting each other, saying, "Look, you're looking really good." And I
hmm
took that into business as well. you can be competitive with people and really like them at the same time.
Yeah.
The only difference I think I've noticed over the years is I really don't talk about my competitiveness. It's almost like something that I keep to myself. Nobody likes somebody who shouts out. Well, it's probably an exaggeration, but I don't think it's a good character trait to shout out how good you're going to be or how much you're going to achieve, particularly if you don't achieve it. Just get your head down,
Put it on the pedestal, right?
uh, train hard, work hard, and
Yeah.
then your actions will show you.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
like that though, Ross. As I agree with that. I don't think you've got to like stand there telling the world like I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that. But that competitive drive is in you. So that so you're using like you'll have learned how to harness that. Maybe when we're a little bit younger, probably I think that for me is like very driven, maybe sometimes spills out in like frustration or not the right way in certain things. But then as you get a bit older, you're like, actually, it's a superpower, but I want to harness it in the right way. Otherwise, it becomes, like we say, maybe it's in society, maybe it comes across egotistical or arrogant or frustrated. Yeah, it's to learn how to use it, isn't it?
You've hit the nail on the head. And also, I think with experience comes like you've probably got to lose a few battles to win the war. When
Mm-hmm.
you're younger, you just want to win everything, and it's like, well, no, some things you're not going to win.
Mm-hmm.
But if these losses or failures are contributing towards the ultimate goal of achieving in the longer term, then that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we've got competitive is one of the characteristics. Being sacrifice is definitely another one. Is there any other characteristics you'd say you took from sport over into other parts of your life?
Having a mentor. I mean, I used to joke and say like I've got three dads. I've got my dad, my dad. I've got my granddad, and then I
Uh,
had my coach who was like a father figure.
yeah.
Uh, and some of the mistakes I see people make in business is that, particularly CEO founders, is that they think they're the person on the top. And a very, very good businessman, like he's achieved phenomenal. He says, Ross, he says, and he said this very drunk, by the way, on a night out. He says, "You've always got a boss. Remember that." And it's something that it's something that I've probably adopted all my life. Is that, I mean, you know me yourself. I don't often act like I'm in charge or I've achieved things because as soon as you walk in the room and you think you're the man, or you walk in and you think you've got nothing to learn, you'll probably learn nothing. But to be in that position, you've always got to assume that somebody knows more than you, or take a step down and let somebody mentor you. So one of the best things I ever did, and it took us a long time to find the person. I probably could have done it about 2.5 degrees, as in like 8, 9 years to find a good mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And the person I found, because he invested in the company, was Steve,
Yeah.
who's now our chairman. And if you're going to make best of a mentor, you've always got to be the mentee.
Yeah.
Have I said that the right way around? But
Yeah.
but technically you've always got to be below that person, even over time. Your knowledge on the area that they coached you 10 to 15 years ago, you might surpass the person now. But
Mm-hmm.
you've always got to be in that position of like, look, he's kind of the guy up here and I'm the guy down there. And I think that's a very important thing because after training for years, sometimes I mightn't agreed with my coach,
Mm-hmm.
but I would always do my best to take into consideration what he was saying. And
Yeah.
it's similar with the chairman and like the mentor. And I've got a lot of mentors now. Is that I mightn't agree with them, but you know what, Ross, you might be wrong. So a
Mm-hmm.
bit of humility
Mm-hmm.
around experience goes a long, long way. And that has served me very, very well.
Yeah.
And I feel lucky actually to have the people who are mentoring me, and that's in
Yeah.
my
But you've also sought them out, right? Or you've also looked at it, or you've also been open to it, Ross. There can be, again, a lot of people, right, who think like, I need to be the one at the top. I need to have all the answers. I need to know everything. And not knowing is a weakness, or they perceive it as that when it's completely not. Actually, we all need people around us that like support us with different things. You seem very open to looking into doing that versus like being closed off.
Yeah, and it was because the area where you transition from being a child to a man, we as a society normally step out of that like that mentor society. It's normally your teachers that are your mentor. If you're lucky, you have a teacher that really takes a shine to you, and then they'll help you through. Like I had maths teachers that were brilliant with me in the past, and then we go into like manhood, But
Hmm.
for me, I almost kind of stayed in this perpetual, like I always had a mentor, and I always realized, you had to be, not the bigger person in the room if you're going to get taught something. So I think that stuck with me, and I think that's lucky. I think
Yeah,
I'm lucky in that sense.
yeah. I'd say you'd say, look, I'd say definitely awareness, probably as much as anything, like being
Yeah.
open for that. And like, because honestly, again, and I think I know this from my role. I'm not saying anybody that I work with in coach, but like I mean, like in terms of being a coach and like putting that out to the world, like people can be very closed off to like that external support from somebody outside of your situation. But
Yep.
actually, that's how we see things that we don't normally see for ourselves. And maybe, like you say, you don't always, maybe not always agree with it, or you don't always have to take it on. But it is that objectiveness outside of you that does help us being there. Imagine like any top athlete who just doesn't have a coach or a mentor or
Yeah.
someone to support them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you'd be like this. It'd be impossible to reach the top, right? But
Well,
business
my
is,
my interpretation of the way the mind normally works is that your initial reaction with anything's emotion. So as I said earlier on, is like, is this emotion serving you? So when
yeah.
somebody turns around and tells you something, like the initial reaction is, I don't believe that. But
Mhm.
that's normally from a place of emotion. That's either making you feel like insecure, that's making you feel like you're not in control. And then it's very important then for you, like the amygdala, not the frontal cortex, sorry, to override and go, well, I don't feel like this person's telling the truth, but this might be because I'm feeling like this. Let's try and explore it. And often you'll find that the person who's telling you something that you think is wrong, you work through it and you go, ah, yeah, he's right. You know,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
it's
But
it's
it's
a lot of mindsets about emotion, and then figuring out whether this emotion's serving you or it's trying to just protect you at all costs. And that emotion normally then is a lie.
yeah. So well put, mate. Hey, that's brilliant, mate. I love that. Fantastic. It's so true, right?
Sure.
There's a big element of like you must process that emotional that bit that appears at the front to be able to then be free of that, like saying what's driving me to make a more of a informed or logical or considered decision.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you are a slave to those emotions, which is yeah, so well put. So there's so many key characteristics and learning insights that you've took from your world, like your sport and your training, your effort of that, moved like through your life. Like how, like I know the size of where your company is now and what you do, right? But like let's go into the beginning part of that. Like how do you get from like being in university, coming through that, like into like starting a business?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, me path was I didn't want to study sport. I kind of wanted to, and I didn't want to at the same time, because I felt like there wasn't the jobs market in it. So I was thinking quite logically at the time. Um, and I did me GNVQ, so I'd done engineering, and then there was quite a large debate, and I actually spoke to a lot of people at the time and went, "Shall I go to university and do something in sport?" And the conclusion I come to was no. Like keep your passion and keep your work almost separate. And I know that's sometimes not and this is just my path, so I'm not saying it's the right one. You see a lot of things on the internet as like follow your dream, and you'll never work a day in your life. And you've got to be very careful from the internet because it gets very samey, and people will repeat things without thinking or analyzing things. And we'll
Mhm.
maybe touch on some other things because there's a lot of inspirational podcasts and people who are trying to tell people how to achieve. And I think a lot of it is regurgitating what somebody else said, making it sound a bit more extreme, and the basis of it isn't true.
Mhm.
And my personal view was that, your passion, um, my passion, which was sport at the time, and you know, a constructive future where I could provide for, for family if I had one, or myself. I wanted to keep them separate. I wanted to pursue something different
Mhm.
than what a lot of the kind of advice goes on. So I went to university, but I didn't love engineering. I was dyslexic. I didn't realize I was dyslexic. So we were studying like 40 hours. I think our lectures were 36 hours, whereas a lot of people, and then you had a lot of work. So we didn't get a lot of like enjoyment time.
Mhm.
So I got involved in the Students' Union and I become head of societies. society's society secretaries, it wasn't, and I just loved it. I loved the organization. I loved that there was an organization around helping people, and it's quite serious as well at university because it's the second highest suicide sector in the country. There's only dentistry that has a higher rate of suicides. So the student unions used to do a lot of good work, and I loved that. I loved the combination and of kind of helping in business. And then people said you should run for president. I did. I got elected. For reasons I'll not go into, the general manager left. So I was in charge at the age of maybe 21, 22 of a £3 million business. And the person who was at the top of it had gone. So it was a baptism of fire of running this organization that turned over. I mean, you got to remember 3 million back 20 years ago. Well, maybe it's a bit longer than 20 years ago. I'm not revealing my age though.
Yeah, we get it. We get it.
It's probably equivalent to 5 million now. So it was a decent size, and
Yeah.
I embraced it, and actually I'd done really well with it. We had a great team. People got elected at the time, and we turned the business around from a £27,000 loss to £124,000 profit in 2 years.
Do you think then that you just kind of like went to that like quite intuitively, like I'm okay with having to run this as business, this organization, or was there any kind of like doubt about that or reservations for yourself?
There wasn't a single doubt in my head, but I take this from sport, is that, like if you walked down to the start of the start line where everybody's psyching each other out, and there's a single bit of doubt in your head over the period where you've got to run 100 meters and put everything in, I mean, everything emotionally, everything physically into this race, you will probably lose. And there's so many examples through sport of, I remember I was racing in it was called the Powder Hall, the New Year sprint. It's older than the modern Olympics. Prize money was like 5 or 6 grand for winning up in Edinburgh. This guy was good in my semi-finals, and my coach was like, keep an eye on him. He's running great times. Everybody knew each other's coaches and teams, and everybody knew, and it was handicapped, right? Because it's betting. So I was actually giving this guy like 2-3 meters head start because I was a good speed. And you never walk outside the lane. You like if somebody's in your way, you'll walk into them, right? You never doubt yourself, because as soon as you get a doubt, that will transpire into like less effort. And this guy said to me, I says, good luck. And I was always respectful, but I was very aggressive. I was, good luck, like very deep sort of voice. Hope you run well. And he went, oh, so do I. And with that moment, right, in that moment, I knew he had doubt and he was going to lose the race, and he was tipped to win, and he had a lot of backing on him, and I beat him quite comfortably. The same gets transferred. You get used to thinking like that. The same gets transferred. The best way to figure out something, if you can't do it, is to do it and fail at it.
Yeah.
But if you failed at it, you're more likely to do it right the next time. So doubt, as we said before, then is often an emotion designed to protect yourself that isn't serving you. So you can have the doubt. Everybody gets it, but just this doesn't affect my ability to do the job or not. So I think looking back, even though I didn't realize at the time, I definitely took that from sport, because I can't remember any doubt of my ability, even though I'd never done anything like that before, of turning the organization around. And we really did. Not just financially, welfare, we built the departments up with regards to how well they looked after students.
Yeah, I love that though, and I love you like you're going back to kind of like sport, because I just think sport is such a vehicle for life in its own right. Like, I'm not saying everything is about sport, but like when you're engaged in sport when you're younger, like it teaches you all sorts about life, yourself, your awareness. If you're in a teamwork, camaraderie, competitiveness, setback, dealing with failure. Like I just think it's so powerful. And you're already displaying like their like key significant moments that teach you about you and teach you about mindset and teach you about life that you used to harness in your more like you say professional career, if you like. I love that. So you get the student union in place. You're running that. You're organising that.
Yeah.
What happens next? Where's the next steps towards your career?
So just before, so I completed my degree, then become president, and just before I become president, um, I I was very lucky actually. He went
Oh,
on to
look,
be, well, yeah, you could say it's not luck, but a
it's
good
not.
friend called Dave Ting, ended up doing a PhD, and I lived with him. So he was like we're talking about the mentor and putting yourself below somebody. I had somebody who's an absolute genius with regards to engineering, and it was always a joke because he didn't study. He come from British Steel, so I sat next to him, and I was helping him with physics in the early days. And I
Right.
was thinking, I'm going to have to really help this guy because he hasn't got a clue academically, right? Fast forward 3 years, I'm almost like his apprentice at university.
Uh-huh.
But because of that, I used to show a lot of other people. And there was another guy as well, a Bosnian, who used to help us a lot. But because of that, I used to help a lot of other people. And I'd be in the library and they'd come to me and they'd be like, go to Ross, he knows what to do. And these engineering questions were so complex, it took you 3 sides of A4 to answer it. And there was so many variations of the answer. And but I'd go in the exam and the people that were coming to me panicking were outperforming me by 20%. And I was devastated. I got like a third class degree. But I was in the student union here, so I knew my life was so, and somebody just said, look, I've seen you present and I've seen you write on a whiteboard and you've got all the classic signs of being dyslexic.
Right. Okay.
And I said, hey, I said, look, I've said this for a long time. I said, but I told my teacher at school and she said, don't be stupid, you're not dyslexic. And then, in her defense, give her paper to a special needs teacher who said I wasn't dyslexic. So I got a
Wow.
test and I was.
Okay.
My life transformed, made me realize why I hated reading, and I'd only read like 2 or 3 books at the time.
Hmm.
Um, and I got information. I got a program that I'd install on the computer that changed my life with regards to it would read the text out. So I went on the internet, I would read the text out aloud, change the background color. I read 25% faster with a yellow background, and I don't get as tired. But then when I went to the computers in the library, I was back to square one because it was installed on my computer.
Right.
Now, in this time, as well as like the commercial stuff, the student movement was very, very good at getting involved in legislation. So it was very involved in the first Disability Discrimination Act through the white paper and the green paper. I can't, it goes from green to white or white to green, I can't. And I realized then that we had to, as a country, start making much more adjustments for people with disabilities. So if you're a restaurant and you can do it, you'll get a grant. You've got to put a ramp in to get you in, and now you're legally responsible to do that. But the internet was the same. You're legally responsible to allow people with disabilities to read it, but nobody had any idea how they were going to do it. And I just asked, and I knew nobody was going to do it if I didn't. So I set up a company that effectively took all the technology that used to be on a computer and allows websites to become accessible with people with dyslexia, visual impairments, dyspraxia, English as a second language. And we started that company and we're growing now. We're about over 100 staff operating in offices in 3 countries. So
Yeah, yeah. You just like flew through that like that. That's but so vital, right? So I want to go back to that. So you you recognize through your own struggle, like being diagnosed with dyslexia, like you're like, there's there's nothing out there for this. So like, because the internet's becoming more and more used. I mean, what year are we talking here, Ross? Where are we at here, roughly?
I mean, the Disability Discrimination Act come in 2005, I think it was. And then I seriously set up, we started developing the product like maybe a year, 2 years later, and then we seriously kind of like registered the company and decided it should be another company, not the one, because I've got 2 companies. Maybe it's like 2009.
2009, yeah. And that's when, and there's still to that point wasn't really that accessibility online for people to read websites, for people to use. Is that until the like you guys started doing that?
Effectively, I mean, there was probably other forms, but effectively we created the whole industry. We've got competitors all around the world now, some big ones as well, worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Hmm.
But it's based on what we created.
Yeah. So from your own personal struggle, you saw a need.
Yeah.
And There's something powerful about that, though, isn't there?
Well, you can either, this is about saying, I can see where this interview is going because we're talking about negative emotions a lot, but it's a negative emotion, right? You
Yeah.
know, like I've been dealt a hand. I've been dealt an amazing lucky hand with regards to being good at sport, but I've been dealt a bad hand with regards to I'm dyslexic, and the education system just wasn't there to help. So I can either complain about it and get on with my job, my life, and just say I didn't do this because of that, or I can just change it.
Hmm.
And that's the way I am. I don't know what it is. There's something inside that, even though I'm quiet about, is like, well, yeah, you want to change the whole world and how the internet works? Yeah, go on, let's do it. And we just thought we could do it, and we're in the direction where we can. Like, and this is what I say to people like watching, like, don't ever think you can't achieve something, because it's likelihood that our type of technology, the concept, is going to be adopted by nearly every website in the world. And it was started in an office in Gateshead, you know, from a guy from an ex-mining town. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that to big myself up. It's just you can make a difference. You've just got to think you can, or at least have a go, and be patient. Nothing's ever overnight.
Yeah. Like, obviously, I mean, I know you, but I love the story. And that's why I really wanted, like, people to, I know it's out there, but my audience to be able to listen to it, and other future audiences, like, how important that mentality is to, like, give it a go.
Yeah,
Not like to not say no to it.
yeah,
That's the difference. You didn't say, like, many people have ideas, don't they, Ross? They have ideas, they have
yeah,
thoughts, like, I'm going to do this, but they say no to themselves. You were saying, let's give it a go. I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know
yeah.
what it's going to become, but I'm going to try. Did you, at that point, did you think it could become the size that your company is now?
I dreamed it could, but I had lots of doubts.
Yeah.
Um, you know, changing. Interestingly, the student union had to have a change of culture, and it took 2 years, and it was a slow moving process. But
Hmm.
with Recite, I was moving the culture of effectively how the world operates online, and it was a much slower thing.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of doubts in the early days of like, people need to do this, but will they adopt it? You know, will people take this seriously? Like
Hmm.
dyslexia has always been said as being the hidden disability. But when you're in the middle of it, the only option after is just to go to keep on going.
To
And
go.
I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to try and it was a struggle. You know, I had times where I was putting staff um wages on my credit card. And back in the day where you could not you could get away with not paying POIE for some time, we weren't paying POIE. And those were the days where they used to send somebody into your office with a PDQ machine, right? That actually like take a payment on credit card. And when a
Wow.
guy's when a guy's standing in the office, there's nothing you can do. You just stand there and go, "All right, I no problem, mate." You know, like get out the
Yeah.
Amex. And
The Amex. Yeah.
but it's also building a team. I was look. I think another thing I'm very good at, and I think this is a product of coming from a rough area, is that you learn for survival that you have to read people very well, particularly when you're young. And I think that went into like when particularly when I was employing people, I
Hmm.
could choose good characters, like really good characters. And you need a special character, particularly if they know their wage is getting put on your credit card because you've got more money in the company, right? And they could be doing anything something else, and they're still with us today. All of them have got share options, and
Hmm.
at the end of this journey with Recite, they will do incredibly well financially.
Yeah. But yeah, but they must had a like it's both. They must had a lot of faith in you and you in them as well, isn't it? Like you believed in them and they
Yeah.
believed in you. It must have been, although very difficult and a struggle, was was it also very like us against the world, we're in this together, like that kind of like unit, like what was that like, kind of that small team at the beginning, like up against this, people not getting paid, people still but pursuing that vision?
I think there was a couple of points I'd say on that. There was a like an us, we will change things, and this is our mission, and the strong mission definitely helped. But there was other elements that I don't see get spoken to a lot. Is that like fundamentally the way I try to operate is as honest as possible in life.
Mhm.
Very like it's a principle of mine is don't lie, don't lie, don't lie. Um, and I think there was like an honest relationship between particularly the four of us in the very early days.
Mhm.
Um, they kind of knew roughly where we stood, but but where there's honesty, there's a lot of trust. And in the beginning, particularly where you've got people kind of like fighting almost for survival, that trust is crucial.
Mhm.
So I think, in a mindset point of view, I think, going into things with integrity and honesty is an incredibly important thing, particularly if you're trying to build something
Mhm.
that's a tech startup
Yeah.
and also fun, you know, like you like we've had some laughs over the years, like you've got to make it fun. Yeah, you can be fighting against the world, but you can have a laugh doing it. And we've had loads of stupid stuff of like nights out when there's only been three or four of us and we saw like a whole roadworks and we're like, oh, we're not going to walk around this, we're going to climb over it. And
Yeah.
then one of the guys loses his car keys in there, so you've got to go back the next day. And all
Yeah.
the fun thing adds because it makes it exciting still,
Yeah. Absolutely.
even if you're not achieving your goal.
Yeah. So how did you then, Ross? Because obviously, coming through what you're saying as well, a lot of struggles in those early days as well. I mean, God, you still have challenges now, right? Of
Yeah.
course you do, but like in those early days when what were you saying to yourself, or can you remember to like keep going through that? Because a lot of people could just turn it off and go, "That's not working," and give up.
I think it's important to compartmentalize.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to, um, when you're in the middle of, I don't know what the proper saying is, but when you're in the middle of shit, you know, keep going forward. But compartmentalizing was a very, very strong thing of mine of like, once you're out that door, it's going to serve you no good thinking about the business until you walk back in that door. And that's very hard to do, but I think I was very, very good at that. Um, yeah. And I think you've got to just I think this comes back to athletics as well. When I started, I wasn't the fastest. And I knew that when I was training, particularly in the winter season where there was a lot of cardiovascular work,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like sprinting the straights, jogging the bends for 3 miles, you were going to be sick. You were going to feel sick. You were struggling to keep other fluids inside you. Don't want to go into too much of that because you were that tired,
Yep.
right? You tune your body to be like, this is hard, but it's supposed to be hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I started this because I knew it was going to be hard, so keep going. And there's just the relentless focus of moving forward. And if
Mm-hmm.
you block everything out, but every day you're only slightly better than what you were the day before, that
Yeah.
compounds in the same way as interest and money compounds over time.
Mm-hmm.
So you've just got to block things out and just be a slightly little bit better every single day.
Yeah.
If you think about it, there's a probability thing. If you look at it from a pure mathematics, every time you're making a slight improvement, which is a slight dip of the switch in the probability towards success,
Mm-hmm.
it increases the amount of days you do it. Simple as that.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's a couple of things in what you said there. I think number one, that like that continuation to get that little bit better and see that little bit of progress. I think that's so powerful, and but I also think that's spoke about a lot online. I think you see that a lot, like the little progress, count the little wins, however people define it. But I tell you what, people don't talk about, which is a point you touched on, was accepting it's going to be hard.
Yeah,
Loads that seems to be a big thing that people avoid, like the hard and the
yeah,
acceptance that this is going to be hard.
yeah.
What do you
And
what,
social media's made it worse.
Yeah, come on, talk about, come on.
Social media's made it worse. Like I deal with people that are younger and they are very much attuned to like I haven't had an impact. And I'm like, you've been at this for 2 years.
Yeah.
And the two bits of advice I ever give to anybody who's starting is don't chase a financial figure. If you chase money, it will lead to a dark place. And I've
Mhm.
seen so many people that get 10 million out and they're like, oh, I'm just rich and miserable now as opposed to being miserable. So pick something that you would love in the future. For
Yeah.
me, for some reason, I think I'm a little bit nomadic. I think my dad was always a bit like that. It's houses abroad.
Hmm.
So like no surprise, I'm sitting in my place in Portugal now. So it was something that I really wanted in my life, and I wanted to be able to take care of my family as well, which I have financially, and bought my mum a house and the likes of that. Um, and the second thing is every overnight success is 10 years. And I've heard that said so many times. So if
Yeah.
people get lucky, like, you can buy crypto and all of a sudden, bang, it goes up. But most overnight success is 10 years, and you've got to be in it for the long haul.
Yeah. And willing to be in that, like, and not just pay lip service to like, oh, I'm willing to do it. No, like you've got to be able to just keep on going, right? And you said earlier about that patience as well, like incredible patience to just, it's not going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. And it's something that's very it's the thing that the internet doesn't provide, because it's not the dopamine hit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you've got like some of these famous influencers going, you can do it, you can grind, you can do it, you can achieve your great dreams.
Yeah.
And somebody else is going, hey, you can achieve your dreams, but this is going to be hard, right? It's going to probably take you 10 years, and you're probably going to sacrifice like most things in your life.
Yeah.
Which of them two as the algorithms are going to pick up on, right? They're
Yeah.
going to pick
First
up on
one,
this.
right?
So it's reprogramming people all the time now of like, I'm a failure if I haven't made something in 2 years. And
Yeah.
I'm like, we barely had sales 2 years in. I had like maybe count on this hand how many clients we had after 2 years of building this product.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. I really want to spend a bit of time because I think it gets brushed past, to the shiny bit, but that
Yeah,
like that it's hard,
yeah,
and that's okay that it's meant to be. I was listening to that Simon Sinek,
yeah,
Start With Why and Leaders Eat Last, and that he was talking on
good. Yeah,
a podcast, really interesting guy, and he was talking a little bit about AI, and he was talking about like it has its benefits, of course, but what he was saying is he said, what I love is knowing that I wrote that book, that I put the work in, and that I grew by writing that book.
yeah,
So like I might get AI to help me, like, grammar check it, for example, or things like that. But he said I had to put the time in to do that, and I grew, and there's something beautiful about that. He said it's the
yeah,
same with like art, it's the same with anything that we create.
yeah,
That trying to get through the hard is where you're missing the point. The
yeah,
hard is the growth, and
yeah.
that finished product is a beauty part of it. And I
Yeah.
really loved how he's kind of describing that.
Well, one of the things, it's probably something worth a touch on, is that like, I detached from my friends to a certain extent, but never fully. So I
Mm,
didn't drink all the time. And luckily, like we went all the way through school together with a lot of them. And I am lucky in the sense, I think when you grow up in a quite a rough area, it creates stronger friendship bonds, I've noticed, than other areas where it's not like that, because you've got to look out for each other when you're like 6 or 7. But I never detached from my friends fully. And I had a friend who I'll call him Wayne. It's not his nickname, but I wouldn't say his nickname online. And he'd be like, "Come on, you can at least come out once a month." And I would be like, "You don't understand, because if I come out, I want to come out more, and I'm in the middle of this thing trying to build it."
yeah.
But I always kept in touch with them,
Hmm.
and you know, uh, I've had 2 capital events where I've took money out, um, and it's enough really to never work again. I wouldn't be kind of like mega affluent lifestyle, but I could probably retire now.
Hmm.
And it made me realize how lucky I was. I chose the path of fundamentally nothing really changed in my life because of the thing that I was pursuing.
Yeah.
The fact that I could sit there and celebrate with the guys, and I've got a box at Newcastle. I have my friends there a lot. My lifestyle hasn't changed, and I think that is a trap of success, to change your lifestyle. That the mindset the internet's pushing now is, you need to lose your friends if they're not aligned to your goals. You need to go through this lonely path. And I'm like, yeah, it will be lonely, but you don't have to change your lifestyle to be successful. And I know a
Yeah.
lot of people who still have got way more money than what I have, still have maintained. And that, I think, is one of the secrets of happiness with regards to achieving. One of the false routes you can take is that you become a lonely person in your journey, and you detach from a lot of things that you love, and you
Yeah.
just find yourself being very rich, very lonely, and then
Yeah.
therefore very sad.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. I remember like like quite a few years ago, like when I was kind of looking into this kind of personal development, like I was like in the health and fitness industry and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
there was a lot of talk then about like, your combination of the five people you spend your time with, and you don't want to be doing this and doing that. And you're
yeah,
just like, I mean, Ross, I'm still like you know some of my closest friends,
yeah, yeah.
I've still maintained my friendships, right?
You're going on holiday soon with my cousin's husband,
Yeah.
so you're definitely still in touch with your mates from back home.
Yeah, and but I love that, and yes, of course, like reduced time like going out and stuff like that. So like going out on the drink and stuff like that, a little bit more kind of like I'm building business, or sometimes not even the energy or free time. But I never lost touch because I don't think you have to.
Yeah,
I think if you got people
bingo,
around you who put
100%.
you in bad places and down a bad path. I understand like
Yeah,
coming away from that, but you don't have to cut away all the people that you grew up with, that you're friends with, that you enjoy your life with. I think there's that like very much creating that insular, lonely place, which is very, very unhealthy. And you're right, people like that, mate. You can have as much money as you want, but you can't buy those friendships. You can't buy those connections. You can't buy that sense of feeling rooted to where you belong and who you belong with. It's okay to, like you say, mate, have the nice house in the other place you can go, but somewhere you're connected to with your roots is we've talked a lot about it, mate, haven't we, in the past? Like
yeah,
it's really
yeah.
important.
And I mean, if you break it down, with this is where you've got to be careful with the internet. Is it started off on Instagram and other, like, I'm not going to blame one particular platform, and it used to be you're the you're the sum of your five closest people you spend time with. And I kind of get that because it's influence, and we've talked about having a chairman who's achieved a lot more and become a mentor and a father figure to me over the years, right? But then you, messages can form a life of their own, and they can evolve into something without being checked. I mean, you've
Yeah,
just got to look at, like, eggs are bad, or some really bad health advice years ago
yeah,
just evolved into something where it was like, oh, like, or low fat's good,
yeah,
yogurt's good. Well, it's full of sugar, but it's just evolved into this thing where this is healthy. And
yeah.
the same has happened with this sort of advice. So it started off with like, you are the sum of your five best friends, and you're like,
Mhm.
okay. It's people have picked it up and just run with it, and it's like you've got to drop your friends who are not aligned to your goals,
Yeah.
right? And people are believing this stuff, and they're going off and they're dropping the five best friends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, if you are influenced that much by people that you grew up with that are not aligned to what you're trying to achieve in life, which is fine because life's about diversity of life, thought, love, right? And you cannot be not influenced by them, right? You are, if you particularly if you're CEO, you're in the group that has the most amount of psychopaths out of any industry in the world, whose base is to try and manipulate.
Yeah.
So if you can't deal with Jeff, who likes to sink 8 pints on a Friday, right, without getting influenced, you know, as all these people influencers saying, how are you going to deal with somebody who's probably going to try and manipulate you because you're now worth millions and they want to try and get you to do something, assign something. So
Hmm.
people need to toughen up. You can still be friends and you can
Hmm.
still have great relationships with people who are not necessarily aligned with what you want to do with your life. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you can see how direct I am with that because I think it's really bad advice. Because I think
Yeah.
people will end up in a dark place if all the friends are just other CEOs that they see 3 times a year. So
Yeah. No, that's why I want to touch on it, because I also agree with what you're saying, but I also know that you're still rooted to your friends, but you've achieved incredible amount of success, and it's really important to get that message out to people. Like, you don't have to give up all those things. You don't have to
yeah,
stop. Like, yes, there might be certain behaviors that you might want to chill out with, calm down with, that, and maybe it's detrimental to your well-being, I guess, and that might affect how you function. But fundamentally, we're talking about who you're connected with and spend your time with, and what you're doing with that. You don't have to cut it all out, right? Um, I think
yeah,
it's
and
so such a good message to get across. So you've gone, in your business, you've sacrificed a lot.
yeah,
And that is a big thing. Like, what is it worth it?
yes. But you've got to figure out what worth it means to you.
Yes, right, good.
And for me, I've always been a bit of a giver. And I was never interested in money. I was always interested in the goal. I need to point out I'm probably more interested in money now, which is like this is not like the probably the archetypal answer that you'd expect. But it was when I'd taken the first tranche of money out, so it was a good chunk. And my mother, I'd lost my father, and my mother was in a house. It was social housing. They were a good company, but there was mold and mold in the house, and she was having all the classic signs of not being in good health. And you could go back and forth with the social housing company, which we'd already done before, and they were pretty good.
Mhm.
But one of the things with mold is that you tend to smell it before you see it, and companies will only normally deal with it if they can see it. And my mother was just Jenny, she was just ill. So I had the financial firepower to say, Mom, look, would you move if I bought you somewhere? And she was like, yes, of course. And I bought her a place in a nice area.
Mhm.
And it was 2 days before me and the girlfriend went on holiday. And I was phoning her up and I was thinking she was putting it on because she sounded that good, right? But just being in a healthy environment,
Yeah.
being able to do that is is amazing. And
Mhm.
the flexibility and the advantages and the freedom that getting to the end and having some level of success has made it completely not worth just for that one thing, you know,
Yeah.
just for that one thing, just to make sure that my mother would be okay.
Yeah. That's amazing. Like what you can then do with the resources you have is like you say, change other people's lives and help other people.
Yeah,
Like like thinking about your company, like taking it from where it was with you start with 4 people, didn't you? Now you're at 100, 3 countries. It's
yeah.
obviously doing fantastically well. Like, how do you feel about when you think about that, what you've accomplished? Like, what's your personal take on it?
Um, this is a complicated answer to be honest with you, because um, like know thyself is one of the biggest keys of mindset, right? And know thyself, particularly the negative sides, and just experiencing it and letting it go is so important. And I've always been, I've always had this thing of like, I could have done better, right? And it's common. I meet a lot of people in my position that are like this. So I'm very rarely proud in the sense because I feel, oh, you could have done better there, Ross. You know, um, when I see people like it, because like my marketing director, for example, he's a mad car buff, right? And he's amazing at his job and he's well rewarded and he bought himself a Ferrari, right? That makes me proud, you know.
Mm,
But I don't think there's often I don't think there's often a lot of space for me to feel like, oh, I'm really happy, because I think that's almost you're at the end of the journey at that point. I'm still driving forward and I still feel like I could do better in a lot of different places, you know?
mhm. So there's a sense of like part of it where you don't want to kind of allow yourself to feel too comfortable because in case it stops you striving forward,
Yeah,
which is
basically,
which
yeah.
is real, which is a real trait of a high performer.
Yeah, and it just seems to be there with us. But then it's the accepting that this isn't a positive emotion, right? It might produce positive results, so I just let it go. And
Mhm,
like when I leave work, I'm never fully satisfied with the amount of what I've achieved today.
mhm,
And I'll walk through the doors and I'll think it and I'll get that feeling and then I'll forget it. And I'll not even think about it once. I mean, the relationships I've been in over the years, I've never took work home. I've never
mhm,
felt the need to discuss it.
mhm.
I just drop it and
Yeah.
crack.
Okay. Yeah. And I think we like athletics. Usain Bolt, although like just kind of swapping it to something else, he was he always said he could run faster,
Yeah.
even though he's got the world records.
Mhm.
He said he could run faster.
Yeah.
Or could have possibly. There is that part, isn't there, where it's that constantly like that drive going forward. But is it now a place of like you allow that to be there, but then also enjoy the smaller moments as well? Like you say, getting your mum the house, like, lifestyle opportunity and freedom that you can have now, seeing your finance guy buy a lovely car, seeing the people who start with you at the beginning being able to financially be rewarded in the future with the company, that you must also enjoy those things as well as striving forward, right?
Yeah, I do. I do. And you know, as the company's getting bigger, the stress obviously is getting more pronounced. So having the freedom of like, look, I bought a place in Portugal. It's a bolt hole. I come down here in the middle of nature near the sea. I can relax, and I am proud of that. And interestingly, I have friends come down here and they almost go back home a transformed figure, you know. So there is moments of pride, particularly when I see other people do things, and I'm really happy. Like I'm genuinely, I'm really happy. I'm happy where we are. I'm happy what the company's achieved. I am happy. I just that thought is a glance, and I'm like, right,
Next.
this could be better. You know,
Yeah.
and we're off somewhere else doing something else. And I think this is where it helps because the chairman is definitely like a sort of mellowing force on this of like, look, you want to figure out like where you are in 2 3 years time, and you know what the longer term looks like, and how do you. And he's thinking about me of like in the sense of, can I slow down a little bit? You know, can I have a bit more of an easier time?
Yeah. And you're trying to figure out if you can answer that question or not.
I just don't think I'm capable of answering that question. You know, like
Maybe not
know
yet.
thyself, but sometimes just export to other people what they think.
Sometimes, yeah. From an outside perspective or a different set of eyes on something. Yeah. So I like that. It's interesting. Maybe we do this again in a few years' time, and we'll see what you come back with. Because I think things evolve, don't they?
Yeah.
Things evolve, and where we are within ourselves evolves as well naturally, and how we might see something might evolve as well. But I think those characteristics of being driven and always want to improve kind of exist. Otherwise, you can't keep creating something like you are.
Mhm.
It makes total sense. So, I mean, we've touched on it a little bit earlier, but it's good to get the message again out there. How important is it for people who want to be a high performer, consistently do it, have coaches and mentors and people around them that are kind of external to them? How important is it, in your opinion?
Massively, massively. And I'm not trying to make this sound like an advert for you, Dave, because if people don't know or will listen to this, you are one of my coaches.
Okay.
It's massively important to be able to park something, right?
Mm,
Do you know I said I can switch off?
mhm.
I can just crack, but I can switch off because I know for a fact I can take that, I can speak to Steve, or I can take that, I can speak to yourself, and we can talk through of like what's really going on here
Yeah.
and why and how's this. And I think that's where coaching and mentoring and like having a chairman or somebody who guide you is so important because you need space. You to be a good CEO, I find you need space. You need to be able to think about the bigger picture. You
Mm,
need not to be too operational. So you need to be able to say no to things. You need to be strategic. You can only be strategic if you've got the mental space.
mhm.
And mentoring and coaching massively helps with that. Because as long as you say, look, I've got to deal with this because it's an issue, but I'm catching up maybe with Dave on Friday afternoon. I'll work through it then. You can do your job. But if you've got too many things swirling around in your head and you haven't externalized them in some way, it'll affect your performance massively and probably your happiness, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I think such a great way to put it. Like, being able to come out of your situation, bit of free time, and just bounce that idea around or talk it out, or kind of break it down a little bit, or get through the emotion. What's the emotion? But then what's the actual root problem of it? Um, yeah, I think it's important, isn't it? It's like Tiger Woods, somebody having a coach. So the coach doesn't play golf as well as Tiger Woods, but can see maybe how Tiger kind of how he hit that ball a little bit because he can see from a different angle. Really does help a lot. Like, I'm not a CEO, I'm not running a company the size of yours, I'm not doing what you do, but it's just kind of seeing a person or that
But
behavior.
you are speaking to other CEOs, right? And then
Yeah,
if I say something, you can probably see a behavior that you've seen before.
yeah,
Whereas I won't see that behavior because I'm on the same level as other CEOs.
yeah, yeah. Different perspective, external. Yeah. So it's important, right?
Massively.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think another area that I maybe haven't touched on is health as well.
Yeah, go on. We've got a few minutes. Let's talk a little bit about health.
I think one of the things that's massively helped me through like tough times through business, and it was the sport in the beginning. But one of the things I realized after like drinking 5 days a week when I'm like 17, and then quitting and then training, after 6 months, I realized how better I felt in myself. Like
Hmm.
I didn't realize that, that my mental health was better, but that wasn't even a thing then. Not that it was bad, but it made me realize the link very early on of, if you're really healthy, you're gonna your mentality is going to be a lot better.
Hmm.
And over the years, I've just studied the brain. It is a biochemical soup. It's electrical, it's magnetic, it's chemical. There's a lot of things, and there's a lot of things you can do to support it, particularly if food's not nutritious, that will help you think clearer and I'm not talking about crazy things. I'm talking about, like, most people know, like cod liver oil, like good magnesium. Like I like
Hmm.
to do cold dips. I sauna a lot. But
Hmm.
most people think I take all these things for health. But what I'm actually doing is taking it from like cognitive performance and mental health. And that
Hmm.
has helped me massively through the tough times of, like, look, I know for a fact when I go to the sauna, on Ramside and sit there for an hour and a half, I'll feel so much better. And I do. And I would encourage anybody listening to this about mindset is to treat your brain like another part of the body. If you're gonna weightlift, right, you're gonna take creatine, or you're gonna take maybe some protein or whey protein. But people almost think of the brain as something that just is controlled by thought. But it's
Yeah.
not. It's a biochemical soup that
Mm.
you can make it. The more healthy you make your brain, the more happier and the better you will perform.
I think that is a brilliant point, and thank you for making it so important. You're right. We just assume that the brain is is like just a thinking machine. Like if I think that way, it'll do that. If I think that way, it does that. But you're absolutely right. It's impacted by nutrients, hormones, like you say, like everything. So making sure you're feeding, where you're saying feeding your brain
Yeah,
in a way like you would feed your body, and really identifying what those key things are to give your brain nutrition. And you're seeing for you that's actually help you cognitively in more
massively.
difficult times or think better or yeah.
100% massively. And also, particularly for men, it still applies to women to a certain extent as well. Like testosterone is the hormone that's behind being driven.
Yeah.
It's the hormone that also makes you enjoy hard work. So it makes effort and more enjoyable. So, if you can keep your testosterone levels up through natural methods, by the way, I don't believe in taking any steroids or any sort of drugs or anything like that. It will have a big effect as well on how well you can perform
Yeah.
in business over the years.
Absolutely, because there is things as well that you can do naturally, as well as your exercise choices and your lifestyle habits that can actually help at least keep your testosterone up at a certain level, right? It doesn't all.
Lifting heavy weights,
Yeah.
sprinting,
Sprinting.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
cold therapy.
Hot therapy, all those things. Keep trying to manage your stress a little bit, keeping those stress hormones down, keep your testosterone
Massively.
up as well. So all those things. Mate, this has been such an interesting conversation, and I think you shared so much. Is there anything you want to just share to finish off, like you think's relevant or we haven't touched on that you may is important for mentality and winning minds?
I think it's important to win. I think it's important to be happy. Um, that would probably be my message. And happiness is, I'm going to go back again. Happiness is a lot of different flavors, from exercise, friends. So don't lose your friends. Um, be healthy, eat healthy. And I think you're massively increasing your mindset, but also your chances of being successful.
Yeah. No, lovely summarization, mate. Well, thank you so much, Ross, for being on the podcast and sharing that. I think people get a lot from it from more perspective, the business, the sport, the mentality, just some great insights, struggle, negative, like just so much you've shared. So thank you so much, mate. I appreciate that.
No problem, anytime.